Hello, my name is Beth Dixon, and I work on the Morristown campus in room 222 of the Math and Behavioral Social Science building. It is my job to help students through their math courses here at Walter State. And as part of that, I am doing these podcasts to help supplement your teacher's lectures. These are not meant to replace the lectures, and sometimes we'll be missing some information that I've assumed that you've had in the class. But what my real goal is to work some examples that your teacher doesn't have time to work because she's giving you the lecture or he's giving you the lecture. And then that way you've got some more examples to watch before you start your homework. And today's podcast is on writing equations from given information. And this given information can be 2 points, points in a slope, or about parallel and perpendicular lines. So as we look here, the first problem says, write the equation of a line that satisfies the stated conditions. And that stated conditions are that slope is 4 and passing through the point 2, 6. So when it says slope is 4, when I read this problem, the first thing I want to do is to go back and write m equals 4. And it goes through this point. So I'm also going to write down my formula. And this podcast is assuming that you're using this formula here or the formula that's just like it here. Now, the only difference between this formula and this formula is that the y has been moved over to the other side of the equation by adding y1 to both sides. So I'm assuming you're using this formula here. If your teacher does not use this formula and sticks to strictly y equals mx plus b, you may want to come in and see me and let us help you use that formula. But I'm going to stick to just one way of doing this for these equations. I may eventually do another set of podcasts that do the other formula. I had to flip a coin and I decided to use this one as the first one. But I've got my slope is 4, and over here at my point, actually I'm probably going to copy my point down again too, x and y. And here's why I do this. When you read a problem, it's always written in somebody else's handwriting or printing. Until you take ownership of that problem, it's not yours. One way that you can take ownership of it is to write down the important pieces of information again. And it helps to underline or circle or write X and Y underneath. Those are steps. And for some students, those steps are enough. But for others, it really takes writing and digging in and getting as much of the information out as possible. And again, it's something I call taking ownership of the problem. So that's why I'll copy it down. The other reason, as I work this problem, my paper is going to inch up. And as my paper inches up, my handwriting will stay in frame longer. So I'll tend to write it out again as well. Now, I'm going to use my formula. And as you use this formula, what you want to remember is it's this value here, and that value there that gets replaced. This y and this x, the one without the little subscripts, and the subscripts are the small numbers, and remember those numbers should be smaller and lower than your line of your paper, or the imaginary line of your paper if you're like me and use unlined paper. But these numbers get replaced with actual numbers. This y and this x should remain as y and x because an equation wants to end up looking like y equals mx plus b. That's what an equation looks like. And when you read your problem, how do you know what to do? That's one of the questions I get from students. Well, I can do it if you tell me what to do. Well, yeah, but you've got to also learn to distinguish what the directions are asking. So how do you do that? Well, it says write the equation. So your answer is going to be an equation. This is what an equation looks like. So anytime you see that phrase, that's what your answer is going to be. Back to this, remember again, we're going to plug in this number, and this number. So I get y minus y1, and so I'm going to come over here and find that y value, which is 6, equals m, come up there and find the m, times x minus x1, so I'm going to come over here and find my x, and I've plugged in for the y, the m, and the x. Now, the next step is to use our distributive property, and I'm going to do that by multiplying 4 through this parentheses. So that gives me 4x minus 8. Now, if I have the formula where the y1's already on this side, then this plus 6 is just going to be out here, and you won't need this step right here that I just did. If you haven't used this formula right here, then you're going to do the step I did here, which is to add 6 to both sides. And that's why I wrote the plus 6 out here and not just underneath, so that it looks more like this one. It doesn't matter. For most of us, we'll write it just directly underneath. In either case, it's going to be negative 8 plus 6, which is negative 2. Did that on the calculator so you could get it. And then that's the equation of the line. How do I know I've got the right answer? Again, it said write the equation. It didn't ask me to find the slope. It didn't ask other things. It wants an equation. So what should my answer look like? My answer should look like an equation. And that's how you find an equation of a line that meets the stated conditions. Okay, let's look at a second example. This one asks us to find the equation. So sometimes it says write, sometimes it'll say find. So in this case, we're supposed to find an equation for the line passing through the points. Well, again, let's look at our formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I need to put in a y, an m, and an x. Well, I've got ample x's and y's. I've got 2 points. My problem is I don't have an m. The previous problem gave us an m as part of our given information. This one did not. Therefore, our first step is to go back to the slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm just simply going to find a y value, which is my 5, subtract my negative 2. Since I started with this y, I'll start with this x, negative 1 minus 2. Five minus a negative 2 is 7. Negative 2 minus 1 is 3. Show you that I'm checking my answers there. And so my slope is 7/3. Now I'm going to get very ugly answers with this. And I'll be honest here and tell you a secret. I don't know if I did that on purpose or whether when I made this problem up, I've goofed somewhere along the way. But we'll just do it because sometimes your answers aren't pretty. Sometimes you do get ugly answers. But now I have a slope and I have an x and a y. And I can pick either one of these points. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to copy one of my points down. Again, part of it so that I've got it fresh on my mind. And part of it is when I scoot this paper up to work, you're not going to be able to see that point. Now, again, I'm going to substitute into this formula. If you're using the formula where the y is on the other side, just go ahead and use it. It comes out and really works the same way. So y minus the y value of 5 equals m, which is 7/3, times x minus a -1. Now, notice we've got that double negative. I don't like any signs that are two signs together. So the first thing I do is fix that before I go any further. I like to do that because that just keeps my signs nice and even. Then I'm just going to use distributive property. Y minus 5 equals 7/3 x plus 7/3. Then I'm going to bring this 5 over to the other side, simply adding 5. And if you were using the other formula, you would just not show that moving and just actually do the actual addition, which is what we're doing here. Now, because it's ugly fractions, I'm going to use the calculator. 7 divided by 3 plus 5, and it gives me 7.33333. So I'm going to hit the math key on the calculator, select enter for fraction, enter again to convert it, and I get plus 22/3. And even though it was an ugly number, it wasn't that hard to deal with. And again, I want to show you how to check your answer. I'm going to widen just a bit so you can see the answer as well as my calculator. And I'm going to show you how to check the answer. To do so, you're going to go to y equals, clear out anything else that's there, type in the answer that you get, which in parentheses 7 divided by 3 for your fraction, x, plus, again, fractions just look better in parentheses. In this case, you wouldn't have to have them, but when in doubt, always use your parentheses. So I've typed in y equals 7/3 x plus 22/3. I'm going to then come up here and go second table, and I get a lot of stuff. Well, how is this checking my answers? Well, remember that this line needs to pass through these two particular points. Well, it passes through the point -1,5. What we need to see is, does it pass through the point 2, -2? No, it does not. So something is wrong with my math. And that happens as well. So what did I do? Oh, it's -7/3. Miss Beth missed a sign. That happens. At this point, I could stop this tape and redo it and not have a sign mistake and show you that and never let you see that sign mistakes happen, but sign mistakes do. And this calculator caught that sign mistake because 2 gave me 12 and not -2. So I'm going to leave it. I'm going to show you that everybody makes mistakes, that we all do that, and that checking our work is really good. Honest, I didn't make the mistake on purpose. It was an accident. I got in a hurry because I was thinking about 7/3. Why did I make this problem have 7/3? And -1 minus 2 is a -3, and therefore my slope should be -7/3. And so I'm going to take the sheet of paper, and I'm going to cover all this up, and we're going to rework this problem from here. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We're going to put in the right y, which is 5, the right slope this time, which is a -7/3, x minus -1. Notice that this time, as we checked, that it had to make both points on the line. That negative 1, 5 worked because it was the one we plugged in. It was that second one that was off because my slope was off. Now, I changed my signs and I got us caught back up to where we use distributive. That's negative 7/3 x. Negative 7/3 times a positive 1 is a negative 7/3. Now, I'd really want to simplify this sign before I use distributive because having 3 signs here to decide what sign I need is really confusing. Now I'm going to go back, add my 5, and this time I get negative 7 divided by 3 plus 5, math fraction, and I get 8/3. So my answer is y equals negative 7/3 x plus 8/3. So I go to my y equals, I'm going to clear everything out because there's so many mistakes, negative 7/3 x plus 8/3, second table, and again I'm trying to find both points, which are negative 1, 5 and 2, negative 2, which I have, which then tells me this time I've got the right answer. Again, I could destroy this tape. Who knows, I may decide later to redo this tape and only a few people get to see the ones where I made the mistake, but everybody makes sign mistakes, and that's why we have to check our answers, and that's why we want to use our calculator to check ourselves. Okay, let's look at this example here, and this one tells us to write the y-intercept form of the equation for the line passing through the following points. Okay, so again, since we're using our formula y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, we do know we want to write an equation, and the y-intercept form means that we need to leave it in y equals mx plus b. Okay, we need slope first. So I'm going to do slope. 7 minus 11 over 1 minus 3. And I'm going to hope that I can do my math a little bit better this time. 7 minus 11 is negative 4. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. So I get a positive 2 slope. Then I'm going to plug it into my formula. I'm going to pick one of my points, doesn't matter which. Y minus, the y value is 7, equals m is 2 times x minus 1. I think I should have done this example first. This one's a much easier one. I should have done that one as my last example. Okay, y minus 7 equals 2x minus 2. Add to 7. Y equals 2x plus 5. I'm almost afraid. I'm going to the calculator. Okay, go to y equals, press 2x plus 5. We're now going to create a table, and in that table we want to find these 2 points. Second table, we want to find the point 1, 7, and we want to find the point 3, 11. And we did, so we got that one right. No sign mistakes. I'm on a roll. Okay, let's look at our last example here. Hopefully we'll end on a good note. Notice, find the equation meeting the following conditions, passing through the points negative 5, 1 and 5, 3. Again, because we're using our formula, first thing we have to do is to find slope. Slope is subtract the y's, subtract the x's, 1 minus 3 over negative 5 minus 5. 1 minus 3 is negative 2 over negative 10 equals positive 1/5. See, I'm still having sign issues today. Then as we look at our equation, I'm going to choose the second point this time. Now, why did I choose the second point? Every other time I've chosen the first point. Well, the second point doesn't have any negative values in it. It'll make it easier. That's the only reason why one point's better than another, is if it's easier to use. So y minus 3 equals 1/5 times x minus 5. Y minus 3 equals 1/5 x minus, and if you need to use your calculator to do this, you can. 1 divided by 5 times 5 is 1. We're just double checking our arithmetic here. So 1/5 times 5 is 1, and it doesn't change the sign. And then if you're using the other formula, your plus 3 will already be there. Otherwise, we're putting our plus 3 when we do it here at the end. Negative 1 plus 3 is plus 2. And then I'm going to come to the calculator. I'm going to go to y equals 1 divided by 5x plus 2. Notice this time I forgot my parentheses. They're not necessary, they just look better. You'll see that this one doesn't look as nice as the previous one, but it's not complete, it's not absolutely necessary. We'll come up here to negative 5, and there's negative 5, 1. And then go down to positive 5, and I've got the 0.53. So yes, I did this one right as well. We didn't get to, I'm going to cut off the podcast here, so we didn't get to how to write equations with perpendicular and parallel. That'll be a separate podcast eventually. I hope to get that up soon. If it doesn't come up as a podcast, you're always welcome to come by MBSS 222. And again, I'm sorry for the mistake on that first one, but it does teach us how to use the calculator as our check. And we always want to do that, especially when it comes to test time. Again, come by and see us in room 222. Thank you.